Hello guys, welcome back or welcome if you're new. It's Christian from Emotions in Wine. So today we talk about Rebula, the famous Slovenian wine. So Rebula Gialla is the grape, but of course called a bit differently in Slovenia. Very important, even more. Of course Rebula Gialla is more famous because Italy is more popular in every mean. But Rebula is more relevant to the country because it's the most important and most prestigious indigenous variety and is available only in Friuli and Slovenia anyway, so very limited area. And then the styles we will see today. So I refer you to the link below for the introduction to Rebula Gialla. Today I skip those parts. I focus on Slovenia and the wines, even because this is the first video only about Slovenia. If you know, Slovenia is quite famous for macerated whites. So orange wines, as they are called. Somebody doesn't like this definition because in the end they are either white or red or rosé, even if the color may tend to orange. But we will see today something about this. So they focused on that because of belief, probably also to make a specific niche of wines. They have very typical character, even a bit different from Friuli. So we go for the two most representative regions, Border in Italy, so near Goriška, near Nova Gorica, the Slovenian part. We have Guerila, Rebula Selection 22 vintage, 12.5 alcohol from Vipavska Dolina, and Kabaj Rebula 2020 vintage, 11.5 alcohol only from Goriška Brda. So the two classics. Goriška Brda, the Collio from Slovenia, more famous, historical. Vipavska Dolina came up more recently, developed a lot, is a wonderful place to see. I don't have images, unfortunately, so I recommend you to Google a bit. I start to pour them because they are not open that long. As you heard, all the vintages, and they need time. But I will not do next day tasting. I will just do a long session. As you can see already, I think the colors are very rich, but not that extreme, if you think. If you can see, of course, they are very gold with amber tone, but not orange yet, at least, even with 3+ years, 3.5 and 5.5, so it's a lot. Interesting is that the color is not that different, as you can note, but the maceration is much different. But we will enter in details later. So both Vipavska Dolina and Goriška Brda have the same, or similar to be precise, soil of Friuli. Ponca, or Poca is called in Slovenian, which is a particular fish. It was the bottom of the sea. It came up in the ages and is a mix of sandstone, marl, limestone, a bit of clay, and the top of the hills are the best part for the Rebula. Vipavska Dolina even some higher altitudes because often goes to 400, while Goriška Brda I think is a bit more to 300, but still a bit more than most of Collio. And they are inner, so a bit cooler because it's a bit further away from the sea. Vipavska Dolina is a valley, so even if the sea is not that far, there is still the hilly area on the southern side, so facing the sea. And in particular in Vipavska Dolina, there is Bura wind, Bora, entering the valley, so cooling a lot, especially nighttime. But even daytime, when it's windy, even in summer or September, is much cooler and dry. That is a good part. Goriška Brda instead is a bit further north, inside mountains, but I guess there is very little this wind, but still is cooler than the Italian part. In Friuli, there are also many wineries, as you may know, doing this kind of path. But of course, in Friuli, you have more the modern style. For Slovenia, of course, it makes sense to go straight on this, even because, as I know, not many wineries are making the fresh version. Majority are like this, and many aging a lot, as you can see. So Guerila is biodynamic certified. Certification here, the logo is a bit different now. On top of the southern slope, so it's facing north, that is interesting. There are many vineyards on both sides. At about 300-400 meters, there is the cellar with a lot of vineyards around. The Rebula is there. Age of the vines is not that old now because the winery is not that old. As I said, this region is more recent. There are few wineries, let's say, historical there. 22 vintage was very tough. It was very dry and warm there. So let's see how they manage. The wine is macerated 7 days. So everything biodynamic here, indigenous yeast and everything. 7 days maceration, and then 1 year big cask old aging before bottling. Then long bottle refinement, because 22 is the current vintage. These wines will show a lot of minerality for sure. That is very characteristic of these soils. First of all, some cool mineral and fruit, touch of herbal. So the colors are pretty much the same, as I said, even if this is 7 days and the other much more, you will see. This is very little influence of oak because it's a big old cask, so I don't expect to find spiciness here. Overall, it's still very shy. Probably the age is making it in between. Dry. Rebula has a high acidity naturally, so even if the vintage was tough, it's still quite good. Of course, then there is a touch of tannin, maceration and big cask, so of course there is a bit of that, so keeping it dry. They are bone dry, I'm sure, 100%. So it's drying up, good length, is very pleasant because there is a touch of sweet fruit rounding up a bit, but not showing that much either on the palate so far. So it's a bit closed yet. Bottles are open a while, but not that much. Of course, here don't expect freshness, vibrancy. The style of the wine and the age, of course, makes something different. Even if there is the natural acidity and the minerality of the soil. Of course, that is a way also to make them more complex, which Rebula naturally is not. But it's a different style. What is my main complaint? I'm not a big fan, as you know if you follow, but my main complaint is about the identity of the grape, because it's difficult to recognize. The classic character is lost in this kind of winemaking. That is my main point. Then some are more appreciable, some less for my palate. This is still, as I said, not the extreme like others do. You see already from the color, but is a bit more also familiar to me being from Friuli, because in Friuli, normally few days maceration was the standard, at least in the older days. So something that I'm used to. Yet slowly showing something more. Nice, the cool from the minerality, some different fruits, but not easy to identify. And then still the touch of herbal, mostly fruit anyway. Start to be some ripe fruit, even yellow. I will do the final round afterwards to let them breathe more. Showing a bit more, but still quite shy. There is a touch more of herbs or even touch of spice on the palate. A sort of bitter touch at the end, very nice. The length is good, is good depth, very pleasant, easy to drink itself, or of course matching many different foods. Here I'm not gonna tell anything because they are particular wines more versatile. So interesting so far. a bit inexpressive, we can say. The wineries are both similar size, medium small. They make several wines, both of them. So a bit available, not that much, of course, but I found them both out of Slovenia. So Kabaj. So this is interesting. Goriška Brda said the most historical. They are near Dobrovo, where is the heart. There is the famous castle, but close to the border with Italy. There is small distance. So that I said is a bit more inner with some mountainous areas behind, but it's still relatively low. Most of his vineyards are about 200-300 meters. The soil is slightly different. There is also a bit of alluvial on top of the Ponca. And the history of the wineries is interesting. Jean-Michel, he is French, from Bordeaux, winemaker. He married the Slovenian woman, Kabaj, that is her last name. He started to make wine first, of course, with his French heritage, but then soon with the Slovenian footprint and heritage also. So there is a touch of both, which is very interesting, because Frenchmen, for sure, they look for elegance, first of all, but with a bit of traditional Slovenian touch, so in the style of the winemaking, is an interesting combination. I know him. I met him a long time ago in my early days. He's slightly more intense, the amber. So they are both like some sweet wines that we can say in the color. Remember, this is well aged also, besides 30 days maceration, which is quite a lot already, but it's not that extreme color, as you can see. There is much more here to see. Indeed, more complexity immediately. The age for sure contributes, but his vines are very old. I always repeat that. He's above 40 years of age. So that makes a huge difference. So he is also very natural, no certifications, but naturalist intervention, the minimal possible. So everything in that direction. They make several wines also, even one amphora, I think. And the maceration for every wine. But every wine is different. So even his experience to know what is the best path to follow. So the vinification is similar, but aging, maceration, everything vary. French, old casks, so barriques, but old, so used multiple years, are used for every wine. So the microvinification is his approach, but not to give too much, just a touch. First of all, fruit, minerality, and there is a decent touch of spice, herbs. Is quite layered actually. Very interesting wine. Some candy fruit already start to be, but in general ripe fruit, but just a touch, not making it round. It's still very fresh from the minerality, I mean. And even with this low alcohol, it's giving a lot on the palate. Tannin here more remarkable. You have the fruit, the tannic, and still fresh and mineral, rebalancing, good depth, good depth. Nothing. I cannot guess that it's only 11.5 alcohol, honestly. Good structure. Of course, supported also a bit by the oak indeed, besides the low maceration, but very well done and very well presented. And I cannot guess that it's 5.5 years old at all. Some rosemary, things like that. Yeah, the fruit is really on the rounder, so mature fruit, but is well rebalanced by the other grain, let's say, notes, keeping it very attractive and still young actually. Can age well, this one. Yeah, still very fresh, mineral. Honestly, if you blind taste it, you cannot say that it's 30 days macerated at all. It's impossible. So he's doing a great job, as usual. Yes, it's not my cup of tea that I get wowed, but it's an impressive wine already. And for sure they will show more later on. Final round. So we can say that in Slovenia they are really reaching the high of the maceration philosophy with experience, knowledge, able to fine-tune, to optimize the results. So that is very interesting actually. And it's a good niche that they found for themselves. Yeah, they are changing. I may add some comments in the end from tonight because I think they will show more. More cool coming out, a bit more fruit, still relatively shy, but showing more. These are wines that can age a lot because here you need to consider, besides the natural acidity, there is also the support of the skin contact and a bit the oak. Even the 2020 is impressive, honestly, for the youth that is showing. Yeah, it's not layer much, it's not that complex, it's a bit more straightforward in a way, but very nice so far, nothing to complain. Yeah, even with more alcohol, it has, so the pick to put second Kabaj was good, because this has a bit less length, but very pleasant, very nice, very nice. It's a nice one. Of course, in the comparison, Goriška Brda this time is ahead. This one, I paid below 19 euros. So in Slovenia, I guess is about 16, something like that. Same for Kabaj. Price was basically the same. So about 19 euros both out of Slovenia. So prices are still good. Yeah, here there is a lot of complexity. Actually, this is quite impressive. He didn't make this style. I'm talking about almost 20 years ago when I met, I don't know, surely 20, even 21 or 22 maybe. So was just starting the process, but chapeau, he's French. Refinals, which is tough to find for a, of course the French is looking for elegance always, but with these wines it's really difficult to be refined. This is refined. I'm sorry for the other, which is a very nice wine, but is an unfortunate, no comparison, but couple. So indeed, this one is taking the scene for sure. Yeah, still changing, still showing more complexity. Is really layered. A huge surprise, and we do it 11.5 alcohol. So change the fruit, some more herbs, touch of spicy. The mineral is always remarkable, and really this fresh nose, even if it's 5.5 years. And not too much this round fruit, almost more there than here, we can say. Yes, of course, with that alcohol is not extreme length, but is long, and a bit bitter and dry, and then a bit of sweet fruit, rebalancing, leaving you very pleasant palate, really. So this is a surprise wine, indeed. Big surprise, big surprise. Even for a non-fan like me of the category, and the price, outstanding, outstanding. I see that he's progressing and he's becoming really one of the symbol winery. He's quite famous in Slovenia, but not at the level of Simčič, Movia, so the Historica, but he's getting famous because he's really delivering top wines. By the way, they made a restaurant in their property, so if you happen to go there, there is also that, rooms and restaurant. So it's the full experience. So chapeau really to the French guy. But nothing to complain even about the first one. Very nice expression. Still a bit shy, but of course Kabaj is another level. I hope you enjoyed. Like, subscribe, comment, share your opinions even on the category. See you next time, and salute.